Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be part of today's conference. And my session is entitled Why Learning Fails and How AI Removes the Barriers We've Normalized. I just want to introduce myself very briefly. My name is Vince Hahn. I'm a technologist and entrepreneur. I've been building enterprise chatbots since 2013, so this is my 14th year doing it. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Mobile Coach, a chatbot company. And just to get to know me a little bit, I used to be a vintage clothing dealer, so something very random in the past. I was actually a trombone major when I was in university many, many years ago before all this white hair. And I'm also an ultra runner. And I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. So there's a QR code where you can just find me as Vince Hahn. So let's jump into today's presentation. Just curious, maybe ask yourself, what are you learning nowadays on your own volition? What are some things that you are tackling, some areas of interest? For me, I'm learning about, I'm actually trying to improve. Korean is my second language, English is my native language. So I'm working on Korean, but I'm curious, just think about a little bit about what are you learning nowadays? Maybe it's a new skill, maybe it's a new hobby, maybe you're trying to fix something around your house. And the point with that reflection is that self-motivated learning is fueled by some intrinsic motivation. There's some reason, there's a why that is driving your interest in learning whatever you're learning. And there's a difference between self-motivated motivated learning with obligated learning. And obligated learning is something that either at school you have to take a class maybe you wouldn't have decided to take, or in the workplace, what we're talking about today, the things that you're asked to learn, or even the things that you want to learn for career development, can fall under this bucket of obligated learning. And there's some real differences there. And I like to call these differences self-guided learning and guided learning. Let's talk a little bit about these differences. So under self-guided learning, this is where you get to choose what to learn and when to learn it. It's typically driven by personal interest. It's normally a flexible, non-linear path. I mean, maybe you decide to take a class that has a linear path in it, but normally it's the whole breadth of how you're trying to learn what you're trying to learn under self-guided learning is flexible. And there's a minimal structure or there's minimal external accountability. Whereas at work, when you're learning stuff at work, typically the organization is defining what to learn and when to learn. And this could range from required security, compliance training, or it could range to leadership development that the organization's investing in you. And there's a leadership framework that they want you to learn and internalize. Typically, it's driven by your role, what your job goals are, what those requirements are. And a lot of times, guided learning is structured and it's sequenced learning paths. So it might be an e-learning course you have to sign up for and go through, or maybe you actually go to an in-person facilitated workshop. And there's normally some built-in accountability and expectations because someone's paying for this guided learning and they want some sort of measure. Is this working? Is there a return on investment? So normally there's some sort of accountability. So that could look like, logging into a learning management system, taking a course and passing the course. And so there's some report that you've completed some learning. So within guided learning, now, maybe coloring guided learning as a negative thing. It's very important. And organizations that can really develop their workforce efficiently and correctly and effectively are going to perform better. I mean, let's face it, if you identify a set of skills, attributes that you can improve with your workforce, and those skills and attributes are positively correlated with company success, but that's a really important strategic advantage. Now, obligated learning is tough to pull off. I mean, without a raise of hands, just think about, have you ever been in an e-learning course and haven't been 100% focused on the course? It is just tough to pull off. And so there's some really common learning barriers that we've just learned to normalize. And so, you go to some workshop at work and it's just boom, 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 boom. It's too much content in a limited amount of time. uh, more content than is reasonably expected to retain. Um, you know, there's a lot of learning infrastructure in companies just naturally prioritize clicks and completion over outcomes because I can go to the learning management system and run a report to say, hey, 90% of the people completed this required training, and that could be a checkbox. But really, how much did they learn the content in the training, the real outcome? That can be more elusive. A lot of times we just rely on one and done training with no real reinforcement. Get them in a room, teach them what we're supposed to teach them, and then hope for the best. There's often little support for real world application. So I could go to a workshop and say, boy, this is really great stuff. This will really help me be better in my job. And when I get back to my desk, how much am I making that sustainability, that training reinforcement, that transfer of knowledge happen in the workplace? You know, that can be suspect. Um, Oftentimes, the training content is generic and it ignores role specific needs. Do I teach this principle different to the sales team versus the accounting team versus our customer service reps? Um, and oftentimes, there's no tracking on whether the training really impacted behavior. So these are just very common barriers that we just maybe sometimes have accepted as there's nothing we can do about it. Well, enter AI and the bot. And what an AI bot can do, we're going to walk through how the AI bot can solve a lot of these normalized barriers. The first thing, before we go into that, I want to just point out that keep in mind that there are different bot modalities. Now, when I say bot, oftentimes people will think about Claude or Gemini or Copilot, some sort of web-based AI chatbot that's passive. It's going to be waiting for you to ask it a question or engage with it. And I just want to remind you that there are different modalities. So on the screen here, there's screenshots of like a web-based chatbot, something that you'd be accustomed to, but also a bot on Teams and an SMS bot. So bots on Teams and SMS can be different in that they can proactively message you first. And that can be a game changer in terms of implementing AI to really help people develop in the workplace. So I just wanted to remind you of that capability as we look at how AI can solve these learning barriers. So we talked about the barriers of too much content, too little time, emphasizing outcome over clicks, or that should actually be emphasizing clicks over outcome. AI bots give you time and access to the learner wherever they already are. So I showed you a screenshot of a bot on Teams and a bot on SMS. Well, bots can be on WhatsApp, they can be on Slack, they can be on Google, they can be embedded on your web app. So they can be everywhere where messaging can happen. So that means that this barrier of, oh gosh, I only get 60 minutes, or I only get this cohort of learners or of my colleagues in this workshop for 60 minutes. That's all I got. So I got to cram all this content in there. Well, now you can have access to your target audience 24 hours a day, and it doesn't have to be crammed into 60 minutes or into a 10-minute e-learning course. You can have the bot proactively drip micro-learning, drip content over time. And in many cases, dripping learning over time is actually easier on the brain, more effective for learning overall. What about reinforcement? This idea that, gosh, after they leave the structured learning environment, let's just hope for the best that they're going to apply what they learned. Well, so an AI bot can allow you to proactively follow up with them. And so this could look like, hey, we're going to program the bot to once a week or twice a week proactively message a question or a quiz question or a survey question or just a check-in or maybe a reminder to reinforce the training path that someone's on. Remember that a bot can be trained with high context. So if the bot knows I've enrolled into course XYZ and it knows the content of that course XYZ, then it can follow up in a highly personalized way. Well, what about the barrier of I need support right now, the moment of need? As we all know, AI bots are computers, so they're available 24 hours a day in any language, and this can really be helpful for organizations that have a global workforce, all time zones, different languages, and bots can be trained to know how to answer a question based on context of I'm in this particular time zone, I'm in this particular role. So what a great resource to have a bot be available in the moment of need. That dovetails into personalization capability. So an AI bot can cater to a person's context. Remember, one of the barriers was when I'm developing. Think about your if you've got a learning and development team in your organization, they're oftentimes having to, okay, well, I'm designing this e-learning course for the whole company. So it often becomes sort of general content for that topic. Well, now with a bot, you can personalize that content. So you could say, hey, here's the general principle and the content that we want to teach, but let's personalize it for the sales team, as I mentioned before, or the accounting team, or the customer service rep. So it can be highly personalized, and that will be positively correlated to more effective learning in the workplace. This is all coming back to really the purpose of why an organization wants guided learning to start with. And what I mentioned earlier before is that if you can really think about an organization that can effectively teach and train their workforce on the pivotal skills and attributes and knowledge, that can really be a game changer for companies to be successful. I also think that there's this barrier for next level assessment capability. AI bots can assess progress and provide reporting data. It's like this could be like one of the killer app features and functionality of a bot, actually, where you can have the bot be, oh boy, for the lack of a better term, like a benevolent informant for you. So imagine having the bot asking these questions over time about how the person's doing, what they think about the product, what they thought about that sales meeting, and of course to help them frame their thinking and to help coach them around personal development. But all that information that you're gathering, boy, it can be just hugely valuable in terms of organizational intelligence. So the ability to assess progress and provide reporting data. Okay, so I need to wrap up here for some Q&A. So I mentioned how like Copilot, Claude, Gemini, these are self-guided AI bots where it's really relying on the user or waiting for the user to engage with it. A guided bot is where the organization has a vested interest in what the bot's doing. One of the disadvantages of self-guided bots, and they're amazing, I'm sure all of us are using them on a daily basis, but I don't know what I don't know, right? So the quality of what I'm going to get out of a self-guided bot is really based on my current state. Now, under a guided bot, with the organization will have strategy, will have many components that the user is not aware of or is not up to speed yet. And so a guided bot can be programmed to fill in those gaps for users. Common use cases for guided bots, talked about training reinforcement, performance support. Coaching is an incredible use case for bots, and a really effective AI bot that's a coach can actually do a lot of the training. We talked about micro learning a little bit, and customers, a guided bot that's really, it's in lockstep alignment with company strategy, engaging with your customers could really be a game changer. Please take a screenshot of this slide, which is key questions when you're designing a guided bot as an organization. What kind of things do you need to answer to come up with your scope and your requirements? This is a great list. I've helped many organizations scope their bots to successful outcomes based on these questions here. A couple final points. AI is not set and forget. So once you've built your guided bot, you can't just let it wilt, because in an organization, content's going to be dynamic. So your company might acquire a different company. Now, all of a sudden, the bot needs to be reset and informed by all those changes, policy changes. And so as those policies change, the chatbot needs to be aware of it. So put in your project plan how you're going to keep the chatbot up to date with the most up-to-date information, which also means that the bot needs a boss. So ownership becomes operational. I love this little image here where you're tweaking the knobs and the dials of how the bot's working based on what it's learning and what you're learning from it. So just like every human needs a manager and needs to be held accountable, any AI bot that you deploy in your organization also needs that type of management. So make sure you have that as part of your project plan. So with that, that ends the recording part of it, and I'm around to answer questions and would love to engage with you. So thanks for participating, and we'll see what questions you have.